What if the reason you don't feel God's presence isn't because He's far away, but because something's blocking you from truly sensing Him? Kathryn Kuhlman carried something most people never touch in a lifetime, a constant awareness of the Holy Spirit so real it changed every room she entered. But it wasn't magic, and it wasn't reserved for the stage. There was a secret she lived by, quiet, powerful, and often missed. And once you understand it, everything about your walk with God will shift. Stay with me, because this is the part no one's talking about. When you really stop and think about what it means to live in God's presence, it doesn't start with doing more. It doesn't begin with attending every event, saying the right words, or even reading all the right books. No, the secret, Kathryn Kuhlman's secret, was much simpler, yet far more difficult. It was surrender, absolute, undiluted surrender, not halfway, not with conditions, not when everything feels good or comfortable. True surrender is when you finally come to the end of yourself and you say, God, I don't want to be in charge anymore. For Kathryn, that turning point wasn't about theatrics or noise. It was quiet, personal, private. She said she died 1,000 deaths before she ever stepped on a stage. What she meant was that something deep inside her had to be laid down before she could ever carry the weight of the presence she carried. She had to die to her own dreams, her own ambitions, her own image. And in exchange, she gained access to a relationship so rich, so full, so constant, that people could feel it when she walked into the room. But it didn't happen overnight. It was the result of a choice she made again and again, to give up control. Surrender is uncomfortable because it requires trust, and most of us have been hurt before. We've learned to hold onto the steering wheel just in case something goes wrong. We say we trust, but we still make backup plans. We say we believe, but we still fight to fix things in our own strength. But here's the truth most people won't tell you. God doesn't work in a heart that's still trying to take the lead. He waits, not out of anger, but out of love. He waits until you're willing to say, not my will anymore, not my way, just yours. Living in God's presence doesn't mean walking around all day in a trance. It means being aware that you're never alone, that His Spirit is near, watching, speaking, guiding. But that kind of nearness only becomes real when you let go. When you no longer need the spotlight, when you no longer need to win the argument, when you're no longer obsessed with proving your worth. You just want Him. That's where Kathryn lived, not in perfection, but in pursuit. She pursued the Holy Spirit with everything she had because she knew what it felt like to live without Him, and she never wanted to go back. So many people chase power, they chase influence, they chase experiences. But Kathryn didn't chase the gifts. She chased the giver, and she found Him in the secret place, not in public applause. She found Him in her brokenness, not in her achievements. That's the part most people miss. They see the miracles, they see the crowds, they hear the testimonies, but they don't see the hours on the floor, the silent cries behind closed doors, the deep wrestle between flesh and spirit. That's where the presence becomes real, where you say yes to God, even when it costs you everything you once thought you needed, and yes, it will cost you. That's why so few walk in that kind of presence. Because surrender means sacrifice. It means walking away from what you thought your life should look like. It means letting go of your own timeline, your own plans, your need to be understood. But the beauty is that what you gain is so much greater than what you give up. You gain peace in the middle of chaos. You gain direction when the world is spinning. You gain a presence so rich, so satisfying, that you never want to live another moment without it. Kathryn's life teaches us that God is not looking for the most talented. He's not waiting for the most eloquent, the most experienced, or even the most confident. He's simply looking for someone who will say yes, someone who will yield, someone who will trust him enough to let go. And that kind of surrender, it moves heaven. It unlocks a realm of living where miracles are normal, where love flows freely, and where your life becomes a vessel through which others encounter God without even realizing why they're crying when they sit next to you. That's the result of surrender. That's what made Kathryn's ministry unforgettable, and the best part, it's not reserved for her. It's not reserved for a few chosen people. It's for anyone willing to lay it all down and say, take everything, just don't take your presence away from me. Because when you taste that presence, really taste it, nothing else satisfies, not applause, not success, not the opinions of others. You would trade it all just to sit quietly in the room where you know he is near. So if you're tired of striving, if you're tired of performing, if you're done trying to hold it all together, this is the moment to surrender, the moment to say yes, because the secret Kathryn carried wasn't found in her fame. It was found in what she gave up to walk in that presence daily, and once you taste it, you'll never be the same again. If you want to live in God's presence, not just occasionally feel it, but truly dwell in it, then you have to shift your focus from routine to relationship. This is what made Kathryn Kuhlman so different. She didn't just talk about God, she walked with him. She didn't just perform ministry duties, she lived from a deep, consistent intimacy with the Holy Spirit. And that kind of closeness isn't built overnight. It's cultivated, it's personal. It grows through time, honesty, and desire. So many people confuse religious activity with connection. They think that showing up, checking the boxes, repeating the same prayers, or going through spiritual motions will automatically result in closeness with God. But real intimacy doesn't work that way. Not with people, and definitely not with God. You can be around someone all day and still not know them. You can sit in church for years and still not understand the heartbeat of the Holy Spirit. Kathryn made it clear, God is not impressed by routine. He's moved by hunger, and hunger grows in the secret place. She treated her relationship with the Holy Spirit like the most sacred friendship of her life. She talked to him constantly. She listened. She waited. She asked for nothing but more of him. That's what intimacy looks like. It's not loud or forced. It's not desperate for attention. It's quiet. It's steady. It's born in the moments no one else sees. When the lights are off, when the stage is empty, when the crowd is gone. That's where God reveals himself the most. When you come to him not for what he can do, but for who he is, intimacy changes you. It softens you. It teaches you to love differently, to listen more, to move slower. Kathryn wasn't in a rush when she was in God's presence. She lingered. She let silence do its work. She understood that friendship with the Holy Spirit isn't about getting more information. It's about transformation. The closer you get, the more your desires shift, the more your priorities align, the more your heart begins to break for what breaks his. And it's not something you can fake. Intimacy with God produces a fragrance that can't be manufactured. People could sense it when Kathryn walked into a room. They didn't need to hear her speak. They could feel what she carried. That's the difference between talent and presence. Talent impresses, presence transforms. And presence only comes from time spent alone with him, day after day, pouring your heart out, listening, learning, loving him for no reason other than that you want to be near. Most people look for quick results. They want power without pursuit. They want favor without friendship, but God doesn't rush. He's not looking for people who visit occasionally. He's looking for those who will abide, who will remain even when they don't feel anything. Kathryn knew what it meant to stay, to sit in stillness, to lean in until the atmosphere shifted. And when the presence of the Holy Spirit came, she treated it like treasure. She never took it for granted. That kind of reverence is rare, and it comes only from relationship. She never made the Holy Spirit feel like a tool or a resource. She honored him as a person. That was the core of everything. She didn't say it. She said he. She didn't speak about the Holy Spirit like a concept. She spoke of him like her closest companion, because that's exactly what he was. And when you see the Holy Spirit as a person, it changes the way you speak, act, move, and minister. You don't just make room for him, you let him take over. Kathryn's relationship with the Holy Spirit was the secret behind her boldness, her compassion, her insight, and her authority. But none of that came from striving. It came from intimacy, and intimacy takes intention. It takes time. It takes honesty. You can't approach God like an appointment. You approach him like a lover, like a friend, like someone you can't imagine living without. That's the level Kathryn lived on. She didn't visit God once a day. She walked with him constantly. He was her atmosphere. You might be asking, how do I get there? It starts with a whisper, a decision to put down your distractions, to set aside your schedule, to talk to him simply and sincerely, to listen even when it's quiet, to keep showing up, not because you have to, but because you want to. Relationship with God isn't built by pressure. It's built by love. And once that love becomes real to you, everything else begins to fall into place. Because in the end, it's not about performance. It's about proximity. And the closer you draw, the more you begin to live, breathe, move, and respond from a place of unshakable connection. That's how you live in his presence. Not through effort, but through intimacy. Sensitivity to the Holy Spirit isn't something you stumble into by accident. It's something you develop, nurture, and protect like the most delicate part of your life. For Kathryn Kuhlman, sensitivity wasn't just a helpful trait. It was the very core of her walk with God. She didn't just hear his voice, she leaned into it. She didn't just feel his presence, she yielded to it in real time, often abandoning her own plans the moment she sensed the Spirit shift. That level of awareness doesn't come from being special. It comes from being surrendered, quiet, and available. Most people miss the voice of the Spirit not because he isn't speaking, but because there's too much noise around and inside them. The world moves fast, always rushing, always demanding more, louder, quicker. But the Holy Spirit doesn't shout over chaos. He whispers in stillness. He nudges gently. And if you're too distracted, too busy with your agenda, too full of your own voice, you'll miss him. Kathryn understood this deeply. She learned to pause, to listen, to wait. Even in the middle of massive crowds or high-pressure moments, she remained still enough inside to notice when the Spirit moved in a new direction. It takes courage to be sensitive, because sensitivity requires that you don't just acknowledge his voice, you obey it. And sometimes what he tells you to do won't make sense to anyone else. Sometimes it will contradict logic, expectations, or plans already in motion. But if you want to live in God's presence, you have to get used to choosing his voice over everything else. Kathryn didn't follow formulas. She followed the Spirit, and when he moved, she moved. When he stopped, she stopped. That's why her ministry carried such power. Not because she was extraordinary, but because she refused to go ahead of the one who was leading her. It's a lifestyle of alignment. Being sensitive to the Spirit means keeping your heart soft, your pride low, and your ears open. It means repenting quickly, forgiving freely, and loving generously. Because when your spirit is heavy with offense, distraction, or ambition, it's much harder to discern his leading. Kathryn guarded her inner world because she knew the Holy Spirit was easily grieved. Not because he's weak, but because he's holy. And when you truly love someone, you don't just want to be near them. You want to never do anything that would make them pull away. She once said that the greatest loss she could imagine wasn't her ministry. It was losing the presence of the Holy Spirit. That fear wasn't rooted in insecurity. It was born from love, from a place so deeply connected to him that even the thought of distance felt unbearable. That's the kind of sensitivity that shifts atmospheres. That's the kind of awareness that causes people to weep before a word is even spoken. Because when the Holy Spirit is in control, people don't just hear truth, they encounter it. But let's be honest, being sensitive to the Spirit in everyday life is not always easy. It means being quick to pause even when you want to respond. It means not saying what your emotions want to say, but what love would say instead. It means canceling plans sometimes. It means staying when you'd rather walk away, or walking away when your ego wants to stay. This isn't about hyper-spirituality. It's about relationship. The more you love him, the more you value his opinion over your own. And it doesn't just affect ministry moments. It changes everything. Your conversations, your decisions, your habits, your friendships. When you're sensitive to the Holy Spirit, you don't need a sign in the sky. You feel that quiet conviction, that inner leaning, that sense of not now, or go speak to her, or wait just a little longer. And when you honor those impressions, even if they seem small, you begin to live in rhythm with heaven. That's where miracles happen. That's where peace flows like a river, not because life is easy, but because you're walking in step with someone greater than you. Kathryn lived in that rhythm. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. She lived her days paying attention. She stayed open. She listened. And because of that, the presence of God didn't just visit her, it rested on her. People could feel it, not because she was loud, but because she was tuned in. And tuning in is the secret, not once a week, not just during crisis, but moment by moment, learning to respond to his leading with childlike trust. If you want to live in God's presence, start by becoming sensitive again. Strip away the layers of distraction, numbness, and pride. Get quiet enough to hear him, soft enough to feel him, brave enough to follow him, because his voice is still speaking. The question is, are you listening?